So I don't like this narrative of AI is smarter and can do better than I can do. It can do faster and it can do some things better than you, but the human in the loop is extremely important. You are the one that it's going to provide the input. You're the one that it's going to assess the output. And there are plenty of humans that are working on the feedback loop inside AI. So let's not devalue our humanity in face of this growing AI component in our lives. It's a tool. Let's use the tool with responsibility.
So many leaders are being told to use AI everywhere, but no one is asking the question, what problem are we trying to solve? And that's what the conversation today is about. Slowing down just enough to make better decisions. And my guest today is Rose Schamberger, and she is a fractional CTO, VP of Engineering and board advisor with over 25 years of experience leading global technology teams. And she brings a perspective that every woman in tech leadership needs right now. If you care about building technology that actually serve people, this episode is for you. And for those who don't know me and the podcast, I want to welcome you to From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast where we talk about the challenges that women face in the tech industry. And every week I bring another woman to talk about a different topic. And my name is Limor Bergman Gross. I'm your host. And I was an engineer once, and I was an engineering leader. And I became a coach for women because my passion is support women and help more women rise to the top. So thank you so much for stopping by. And if you're ready to talk about technology that serves you and not you serve technology, let's dive right in. How are you?
I am good. How you been, Limor?
Pretty good, yeah. Pleasure to have you here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too.
Yeah, and when we met, we said, we're going to talk about technology and how technology can help solve problems versus like chasing after the next shiny tools.
Exactly.
So first, before we dive into that, tell us a little bit how you got into that. I know it's a passion of yours, but how did you get into being interested in that?
I've been working with technology for a long time, right? And then I work in companies where they were known for their advanced technologies, advanced tools, and bunches of PhDs and nothing. That is not the problem, right? But over time, I noticed that that didn't guarantee market success. So market success is very different because you're not just, nobody buys the technology per se.
Yeah.
They buy a solution to a problem that they are trying to solve. So if you're trying to create something, you have to think about how that it's going to really solve a real problem. And then what it's behind that, for the most part, is transparent or irrelevant to most consumers and to most companies. So when I was working with engineers, they were obsessed about, are we using the latest tech stack? Are we using the latest technology? And I'm like, that is great from a productivity perspective for the company because it's easier to hire, etc. But from a customer perspective, you have to put yourself in their shoes. You have to be more customer centric. If you come up with, let's think about analogies here, right? You come up with the best car you can come up with, but nobody buys that car, but it has the latest technology. You can open the windows with your voice. All those things can be cool, and then they are great in a playground. But when you're putting those parts together, you have to, and then I'm not saying that you shouldn't use the latest technology when applicable, but you have to think about that. Is it applicable? Are the consumers going to buy it? Is this going to be used by someone? If not, then it's just technology for the sake of technology, which has a place in R&D where you're trying to evolve and learn. in labs, but doesn't make companies grow and then sell more.
Definitely. And I think this is very relatable to me, right? Because I led engineers. But the thing is, I mean, engineers, their job is to solve problems, right? And to
Yes,
find the right ways to solve. And eventually, the company leadership, like the CEO, the product team, they are supposed to figure out like what should be built, like what problems should be solved. So what is your take on that?
I agree, but I think this is a team sport more than we would like to say. And then I think a lot of problems stem from the fact that we try to create this wall that separates who decides what it's going to be built and who decides how it's going to be built. I see that those two groups have to collaborate way more because there are limitations on what you're going to build based on how you can build. So those conversations have to happen, and then they have to start in the beginning. And even with the concept that product will decide, hey, this is what we're going to build, there is still the how you're going to build. And then
Yeah.
the how has to be a balance of how this is going to be used by the customer. And the most important thing that you need to think about when you're building a technology product is the value that you're providing and how fast you're providing that value. Does the customer care that your tech stack is A, B, or C? No. That decision has to be made in the context of speed, quality, and servicing the customer. So that is when I say you don't have to use the latest and greatest technology for every single solution. They are applicable in some cases, but not in all cases.
Yeah.
And then,
Sure.
yes, maybe the what can be decided by another group, but I think the collaboration there is really important.
Definitely, I agree with you that collaboration is important. It just there has to be some boundaries or some kind of
Yes,
distinction about what each kind of function thinks about. But I do agree that engineers tend to think about cool technology and how to solve problems, and less about does it make sense, time to market,
exactly.
whatever, right? And then we get into the AI area, and I hear from a lot of people that actually the company leadership is asking them to use AI everywhere without really understanding if it makes sense or how. What's
Yes.
your take on that?
I think that there is this selling aspect of AI can increase productivity, which I am not saying that it's not true. I am saying that for that to be true, you have to learn how to use the tools. And this is the is a powerful, really powerful tool that can help in a lot of ways. But as any tool, you have to know how to apply. Not every single thing is a nail that you're going to use a hammer. So not everything can be improved with AI. And then what we need to go back to what problem we are trying to solve. Are we trying to solve for speed, for productivity of the engineering team? Are we trying to solve for a customer problem? And then based on what problem you're trying to solve, you decide how and when you're going to use AI. And AI doesn't do anything if you don't have good data, sanitized data, good LLMs to be used. So there are a lot of limitations or a lot of considerations that have to be done when you're planning to use AI. And just saying like, use AI because I heard on so and so saying that productivity increased by 40%. There's always those numbers, right?
Yeah.
And on the other side of the coin, we are seeing more and more reports that a lot of customers, a lot of companies that have invested on AI haven't got their return on investment, which I think it's because they just jump into this bandwagon without a clear problem to solve. And if you don't know what you're solving for, how you measure if you got there or not. So all those things, as any tool, you let engineering. So a long time ago, we didn't have visual studios and you were like programming in a completely different environment. Then those IGs came to help you improve productivity, but you had to understand how you're using this and who is still responsible for the overall quality, for the overall results. You don't give them the responsibility of the engineers. You use that as a tool to help engineers become better. and then have more time to do more features.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, as you mentioned, like a tool, you have to know how to use it. The
Exactly.
thing is that a good engineer will know what to ask specifically, how to use AI versus someone who have maybe never wrote code in their life, right? This is the challenge, that you're going to have engineers who never wrote a line of code, that they're
Yeah.
just writing with AI, so they don't know how to write. And then they're trying to tell a machine how to write code, which is kind of a challenge.
They don't know the end result. You cannot assess if the end result was proper or not. AI hallucinates. You can ask any question to AI, and then sometimes it's going to give you a good answer, but you have to have knowledge on that subject to understand in the spectrum of good where this answer sits. And sometimes it's a bad answer. So you also have to know that. If I develop a piece of code and you develop a piece of code, the results will be different, even if we are giving the same thing. And not to say that one is going to be better than the other, but they're going to be different. And then depending on the situation, your code may be more appropriate. It's more fine-tuned for performance. In other situations, mine may be more appropriate. It's more fine-tuned for security. Or maybe ideally it would be a combination of both. So when you're using AI, you need to understand the input, the processing, and you have to be able to assess the output. So the prompt engineering is one aspect, but also assessing the result. Is this valid? Is this the best way? It's contextual. So it might be good for product A, but for my product may not be the best answer, right?
Definitely. So you mentioned in our call that we want to make sure that technology can help humans. Remember
Yes.
you said that. So can you elaborate what you meant by that?
I think when you think about the evolution, right, we come up with a lot of great technologies, great leapfrog technologies that have helped humans over time. Think about the evolution in medicine, for example. You learn something and now you have vaccines, you have medications. To me, when you are, but it can also be destructive because you can also have biotechnology wars, right?
Yeah.
So applying technology to the advancement of humanity, to me, it's very important, and it has to be done with a lot of ethical considerations in the process. Because, as I said, a tool is a tool, and you can use for the good and for the bad. I can throw a hammer on someone's head, and it's not going to be really the best way of using the tool. But I can use the hammer for putting a nail on the wall, and then that it's appropriate. So every single technology advancement has the potential of helping humans and a little bit destroying humans at the same time, which is concerning. And when you have something like AI that it's fast and furious, you have to be careful that you don't go beyond a point where there's no point of return in terms of how much harm you are doing to societies, to people. So I love technology advancement. I love being in a lab, finding new things, but I want to make sure that those discoveries are pushed forward to help people, to advance knowledge. The power that AI can have in education, and I know that everybody's considering or concerned about, oh, students are going to be cheating, and that is one aspect of that. But can you think about, like, if you have a learning disability or if you have a different learning style, AI can be your tutor. You can program for that. And to me, education is one of the biggest problems that cause the other problems. But there is a lot of potential there. And then we are always thinking about technology on how we're going to make more money, how you're going to reduce your costs. I would like to change this narrative, always to think like, and it can be small things, it can be big things, but how can you leverage technology to really help humans to live better with higher quality of life, learning things, enjoying themselves?
Yeah, in education, my kids already, they had to do a work at school, and the teacher told them it's okay to use AI. Like
Yeah.
they had to write something about their personal experiences, doesn't matter about something, but the teacher told me it's okay. So I think becoming kind of the norm. I mean, because I think that teachers understand that they cannot really prevent.
No.
They cannot really prevent their students from using AI tools, and a lot of times they cannot identify if AI was used or not. So they might as well embrace it.
Yeah, I grew up with encyclopedias. That's
Me
how old
too.
I am. Yeah.
I'm also old.
My kids grew up with Google, and I'm like, and they complain, and I'm like, you don't know what it is having to go to the library, pick up
Yeah,
a encyclopedia, copy those pages, and then study through that. So you cannot, you can. It's not the best usage of your time. You should jump on that wave and understand how that wave of technology can help you advance and remove barriers from each area of your life. So I'm sure in the beginning teachers were like, do not, you cannot use Google, you have to read encyclopedias. And then after a while it's like, how can you prove that they may have Google to read the encyclopedias for them? So each wave will bring some new behaviors that you have to adapt and challenges also that you have to overcome.
definitely. I think that in medicine, in health, AI can be revolutionary.
I 100% agree. 100%. I'm so hopeful that we can find ways of really, and I'm not talking about living until 150 years because I don't know, my retirement is not going to go that far. But for the years that I live with a much higher quality of life, especially when you talk about childhood problems and deficiencies and deaths in childhood that you still see a lot
Definitely.
in third world countries, right?
Sure. I think it's very exciting how we can identify when a doctor can use it to, based on symptoms to think about, potential problems that today, I mean, each doctor is basically based on their knowledge and their experience and maybe a few colleagues, they kind of, analyze it. But if they use AI, they have so much more data they can query.
And the speed of treatment can be faster also, right? One important thing to notice is that medicine is not an exact science. So the treatment that works for Rose may not work for Limor, which is fine. But as you create this, but it's hard for a doctor that has only treated Rose to understand that Limor has different things in her body. With AI, you can have that population also mapped. So now when you have a new patient, you don't just apply what has worked for 90% of your patients. You have enough data that you can say like, okay, so you came from a different region, you have a different metabolism, whatever are the parts of your body that are different and your background and what you eat, what you don't. So that data can be extremely important, which I think today we don't have a very personalized medicine, at least in US. You can create,
And here as well.
yeah, you can create that, right? Because now I know Rose is older and she has played volleyball, she did this, she did that. So her body is different than someone that never did any activity, any physical activity. And then that personalization, I think it would be a great advancement for medicine.
And how do you think it can help women and moms?
I think that we have the data, and the problem has been so far that every single research and surveys have been done thinking about the male body, the male lifestyle, the male, right? There's no excuse right now. You have the data for the women, and you have to understand and personalize that. Our bodies are different, day to day are different, our stressors are different. So our responsibilities are different, and even how we take upon them. So being a woman, it's not just a chromosome thing. There is the nature, but there is the nurture, how we are raised, how we live our lives, and then the responsibilities that we get. There's enough data there that I think, and then I think it's starting, but in a lot of cases, it is still based on male data, which I think we women should at least protect ourselves. And then if you go to a doctor or if you go to an interview for a job, whatever it is, you have to bring the women part of that nature. Yes, we are moms. We have to raise our kids. We have those responsibilities. Our bodies are different. We have different fluctuations and we cannot generalize. We have to really use this opportunity to bring more quality of life for women.
I wish. Wish we will.
Well, it starts with us. I think it starts with you, Limor. You are having a podcast. You are talking about from a woman to a leader studio. So you are bringing the awareness of everything that you do and everything that you are to other women. And I think this is very powerful. That's how it starts, right? All
Yeah,
of us together.
definitely. Exactly. And what else? What else was you want to share that maybe I haven't asked you?
I think that one of the things, and yes, it's something that came with a dinner party that I was at yesterday about people saying like, "Oh," the conversation came to using AI and ChatGPT, and they're like, "Oh, AI is so much smarter," and then I'm like, AI is us, right? We built that, we created that. It's the same as saying cars are faster than humans. Yes, we created that. We identified technology that would allow us to go from point A to point B faster, and airplanes are faster than cars. So I don't like this narrative of AI is smarter and can do better than I can do. It can do faster and it can do some things better than you, but the human in the loop is extremely important. You are the one that it's going to provide the input, you're the one that it's going to assess the output. And there are plenty of humans that are working on the feedback loop inside AI. So let's not devalue our humanity in face of this growing AI component in our lives. It's a tool. Let's use the tool with responsibility.
Yeah, and in my field, like I'm coaching, and there's a lot of talk about AI coaching, AI in coaching. Like, do we even need coaches? Like, maybe you can just use AI as your coach. And in many cases, you can. I'm actually speaking in a conference in 2 weeks, and I prepared some kind of handout, and in the handout I put some prompts that they can use, and in the prompts it was kind of like a coaching prompt. And I do think, yeah, you can use many cases AI to maybe supplement. I actually hear of people that use it as a supplement to therapy.
That's
Even
perfect as a
that's
supplement.
perfect, but it will not replace the
Yes.
human connection,
No.
not replace the personalized approach of one person meeting with you, understanding you, assessing all the nonverbals. That will not happen with the machine.
And I think after COVID, we craved so much this human interaction. So it's interesting to me to see that people are, oh, I can use AI for everything. I think we need more than ever human connection, human empathy, ideas. And the benefit of us humans is that we are not perfect. And that perspective has to be always put together in any type of conversation, coaching. So the coaching aspect of anything, it's not that the coach is perfect and the coachee is unperfect. No, it's two unperfect human beings growing together. And it's really hard to think that you're growing together with a tool. You can ask questions, you can get some general guidelines, but I think the human connection, it is critical.
For sure. And before we end today's call, tell our listener a little bit about what you do today and how they can find you.
So they can find me on LinkedIn, Rose Schamberger.
Perfect.
I am a fractional CTO and a VP of engineering for a company here in Denver. And before we end the call, I really want to thank you, Limor, for everything that you're doing to, one, bring the technology word out there, but also to bring the woman perspective to this environment that is still more male dominant than maybe other areas, right? So it
Yeah.
is refreshing to see a lot of women coming together and working together in technology. So thank you so much for what you do. I really
My
appreciate
pleasure. My pleasure. And how do you combine both VP of engineering and fractional CTO?
it. Sleep.
Sleep. By the way, I mean, if I may ask, how, if someone want to get, not me, but if one of our listeners want to find a fractional role, because I know a lot of people talk about fractional roles, CTOs and other roles as well. How will she go about it?
There's a lot of companies right now that are working with fractional CTOs. There are fractional jobs, fractional groups. I was part of a group called CTOX, but there are some Slack groups. I can send to you to put on the show notes. I will send
Yeah.
you the list of the Slack groups that I'm part of. And all of them have not just technology, but they have everything.
Perfect.
And few areas they're growing a lot, like financial CFO, fractional CFO, and fractional CMOs are growing like light speedy. So I sent you the links to those Slack groups they're
That
very
will be
interesting.
fantastic. That will be very helpful. Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially for companies like very early stage.
Very
And
early stages, yes.
they may not have the need for someone full time or the budget or both. It makes total sense to get someone experienced, but
Yeah,
just
and sometimes even established companies, like think about an HVAC company, right? They may be in need for a certain period of time to improve their technology. They don't need the CTO, their job, their day to day activities are not related to technology, but they may need, for example, someone to come in and organize their systems, their email with the bookings, with the QuickBooks, financial, etc. It is a project. And then
yeah,
fractals come in and help you have that project done. And then you go on with your HVAC life because you don't need a full time CTO for sure. So there's a lot of small companies or even medium sized companies that don't need all the traditional C-suite functions.
yeah,
And then sometimes when you say fractional CTO feels like very, oh my God, it's a C-suite job. Not necessarily. I would say fractional technology consultant or technology partner and fractional marketing partner. You just bring that expertise for a defined period of time. You complete a project and they go on. So early stages and companies that are not necessarily big enough to have all the components of a traditional large company.
yeah, makes sense. Thank you. And thank you so much, Rose. I really enjoyed talking to you today.
Me too. Thanks, Limor. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode with Rose. If you find that valuable, make sure to share that with anyone who can benefit from this episode. And don't forget to subscribe to From a Woman to a Leader podcast and share it with any woman who needs to hear it. Before you leave, I want to share with you what's coming up next week. And I have a question for you. What if the reason your team is burning out or leaving isn't performance but fear? And in the next episode of From a Woman to a Leader, I sit down with Francie Jane. She is the founder and CEO of Terawatt, and we talk about psychological safety. We break down why people stay silent, how leaders unintentionally create fear, and why the best teams aren't smartest, but the safest one. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.